It started with a knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. Reed was working late again, as always, and I was halfway through reheating leftovers when the sharp, controlled sound echoed through the house. I paused, annoyed. It was nearly 9 p.m. When I opened the door, the man on the other side didn't smile. He stood tall, uniform crisp, badge catching the hallway light. His eyes were dark and steady. Calm, but not cold. "Evening," he said. "Officer Micah Reyes. We had a call about a noise complaint coming from this address." I blinked. "A what?" His gaze flicked past me, taking in the dim lights, the quiet, the unremarkable domestic silence. "Probably nothing. Neighbors said something about shouting. Could be a mix-up." "I've been alone all night," I said, then immediately regretted how it sounded. He cocked his head. "Alone, huh?" I stepped back, unsure why. "You want to come in?" "Just to check." Micah hesitated, then nodded once. "If you don't mind." The moment he crossed the threshold, the air inside the house changed. He walked with confidence, the kind that didn't demand attention but naturally held it. His radio crackled faintly on his chest. I tried not to stare at how the uniform clung to his form, but I noticed too much. The way his sleeves stretched over his arms, the way his belt hugged his hips. "I'm Daniel," I said quickly, trying to redirect my thoughts. "Nice place, Daniel," he said, scanning the living room. "You live here alone?" "No. My husband's a lawyer. He's out a lot." He turned to face me again, his eyes lingering on mine just a moment too long. "So, it's just you tonight." The heat from the microwave ticked in the background. I swallowed. "Yeah. You want water or something?" He raised an eyebrow. "You offering a cop water or something else?" I laughed, but it came out nervous. "Just water." He smiled finally, small, crooked. It made something tighten in my chest. I handed him a glass, and our fingers brushed. A chill shot through me. He noticed. I know he did. But he didn't pull away. "So," I said, needing to break whatever this was, noises, huh? "Guess my leftovers were being too loud." He chuckled, low and warm. "Honestly? I think your neighbor's just nosy. Retired, bored, probably watches too much TV." We stood in silence for a moment, the kind that hovered on the edge of something unspoken. He looked around the house again, at the framed photos, the bookshelves, the untouched wine glasses on the table. "You two been together long?" he asked. 7 years. Married for 4. "That's a long time," he said, almost softly. "Feels longer lately." Micah looked at me again, this time not with the practiced distance of a cop, but as a man. Curious. Reading me. Maybe seeing something I hadn't meant to reveal. "Ever get tired of being good?" he asked. I froze. "What?" He shrugged, sipping his water. "Doing what's expected. Following all the rules. I teach art. I don't exactly live dangerously." "That's not what I meant." He took another step closer. Just one. Not threatening, just close enough that I could feel the heat from his body. Close enough that my breath caught. "I should go," he said. "You didn't find anything." "Didn't need to," he replied, setting the glass down. "House is quiet. Too quiet." I stood there, stupidly still, as he moved toward the door. But just before opening it, he turned his head slightly. "You know," he said, almost like it was an afterthought, "if your neighbor keeps calling, I might have to come back." I didn't answer. He left without waiting for one. I locked the door slowly. My hands were trembling, though I told myself it was nothing. Just a cop doing his job. Just a random visit. But that night I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Reed, his back turned toward me, the same way it had been for weeks now. My body was here. But my mind kept returning to the sound of boots on my hardwood floor. To a crooked smile. To dark eyes that looked right through me. Something had been set in motion. I didn't know what yet. Only that when Micah knocked on my door, he hadn't just come for a complaint. He had come for something else. and part of me had already opened the door. Micah started showing up more often. The first time after the initial visit, he knocked mid-afternoon. I'd just gotten home from school, still wearing paint-smeared jeans, the scent of turpentine clinging to me. "Another complaint?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He gave me that same crooked smile. "Nope. Just thought I'd check in. Neighbor said something about suspicious activity. Turned out to be her own reflection in the window." I laughed. He didn't leave. He stepped inside like he'd been invited, brushed past me with the casual confidence of someone who knew they wouldn't be told no. I should have stopped him. Should have said something. But instead, I offered him coffee. Micah sat on the kitchen stool like he belonged there. His uniform shirt was unbuttoned at the collar this time. His gun holster hung at his side, casual, like a decoration. "You always this neighborly?" I asked, pouring the coffee. He shrugged. "Only when the neighbor's interesting." That word, interesting, sat between us like a challenge. I wasn't used to being looked at like that. Not anymore. Reed used to touch my face when I spoke. Used to trace my jawline absent-mindedly when I was talking about lesson plans or gallery openings. Now he barely made eye contact unless we were discussing bills. Micah, on the other hand, looked straight at me. Always. "Is your husband home?" he asked, voice light but loaded. I shook my head. "Working late. Again." He nodded. "Must get lonely." I swallowed the lump forming in my throat and took a sip of my coffee to hide it. "I'm used to it." He didn't answer, just looked at me like he was waiting for something I didn't know how to say. That visit lasted 10 minutes. The next, a little longer. Then longer still. Sometimes, he came without a reason at all. Once, he helped me carry a new shelf up the stairs. His forearms flexed with each lift, his shirt clinging damp to his back from the effort. I watched too long. He caught me. Said nothing. Another time, he stood at the threshold with his thumb tucked into his belt, eyes scanning me like he was on patrol, but it wasn't crime he was searching for. The tension thickened, unspoken but humming, like something electrical in the walls. I started dressing better when I was home. Started checking the mirror twice. Maybe 3 times. And Reed noticed, barely. "You're different lately," he said one night, pulling off his tie. "How?" He looked at me, really looked for the first time in weeks. "You're quieter. Distant." I shrugged. "We've both been busy." He kissed my cheek. "A brief, perfunctory thing. We'll take that trip soon, okay? Just need to finish this trial." I nodded, already forgetting the promise. But I didn't forget Micah. Late one evening, he showed up in jeans and a tight black t-shirt. No uniform. No badge. "Off duty?" I asked, heart hammering. "Just passing by." "You always just pass by when Reed's not home?" He tilted his head. "Would it bother you if I did?" I opened the door wider. "You want a drink?" He stepped in without answering. We sat on the couch, sipping whiskey. He loosened up. Told me about growing up in a tough neighborhood. About how most guys he knew ended up in cuffs instead of badges. His voice softened when he spoke about his mother, and how she still prays for him every morning. I listened. I listened too closely. Then he asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Do you still love him?" My throat tightened. "Of course. But do you feel him?" I turned my head to face him. "Micah." He leaned in, not close enough to touch, but enough that I could feel the heat of him. The silence stretched long. My pulse was a drumbeat in my ears. "You ever think about what you're not getting?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry. My hands were still, but inside, everything was moving. He stood. "I should go." As he reached the door, he paused. "You know I don't need a call to come by, right? Just say the word." Then he left. I sat in the silence after, the whiskey glass warm in my palm. My wedding ring caught the lamplight and seemed to mock me. Micah wasn't subtle anymore. And I wasn't resisting. Something inside me had shifted, tilted toward danger, toward want. Not just physical, it was deeper than that. I liked being seen. I liked feeling like someone noticed me when I spoke, when I moved, when I breathed. I told myself it was still harmless. I told myself I hadn't done anything wrong. But I had started something. And I knew, deep down, he'd come back again. The question wasn't if. It was when. And what I'd do when he did. The night Reed left for his weekend conference, the silence in the house felt different. He hugged me briefly, muttered something about the hotel Wi-Fi being spotty, and kissed my cheek like he always did, absent, distracted, married to his ambition more than to me. I stood at the window long after his car disappeared, heart thudding against my ribs, already knowing what I was going to do. I didn't text Micah. I didn't have to. He knocked at 10:12 p.m. I didn't hesitate this time. He wasn't in uniform. Black hoodie. Faded jeans. His hair damp from the drizzle outside, his eyes darker than usual. When I opened the door, he looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You knew I was coming," he said. I nodded. "Is he gone?" I nodded again. And then I stepped aside. Micah walked in without a word. No small talk. No excuse. He set his phone down on the hallway table, peeled off the hoodie, and hung it on the hook like he lived here. His eyes scanned the house, the dim lighting, the single wine glass on the table. "You planned this," he said, voice low, not accusing, just stating the truth. "Maybe," I answered. We stood across from each other in the living room. The space between us was thick. Not with awkwardness. With permission. He took one step forward. Then another. "I told myself I wouldn't do this," I said quietly, breath shaky. "But you opened the door anyway." He was in front of me now, so close I could smell the rain still clinging to his skin. My hand brushed against his chest. Whether by accident or intent, I couldn't say, but I didn't move it away. His heart was beating fast. "So did I," he said. Then he kissed me. It wasn't hesitant. It wasn't gentle. It was weeks of tension, of eyes that lingered too long, of hands that hovered but never touched. It was all of it, finally igniting. His mouth was warm, his hand firm on the side of my neck. I melted into it like I'd been waiting my whole life. We didn't speak for a long time after that. My shirt was on the floor. His breath was on my skin. The couch creaked beneath us. I could feel the stubble of his jaw against my shoulder. His hands rough from work, but precise. Not rushed. Not careless. Every motion felt deliberate, like he wasn't just touching me, but memorizing me. It wasn't lust. Not only that. It felt like recognition. Somewhere between the breathless moments I looked at him. Really looked. Micah wasn't smiling anymore. There was no smugness, no smirk. His expression was tender, focused, vulnerable, even. As if, in giving myself to him, I'd taken something from him too. "You okay?" he asked against my neck. I nodded, eyes closed. Yeah. But I wasn't. Not really. Because it felt too real. Afterwards, we lay on the couch tangled in each other's limbs, the room still. The only sound was the soft buzz of a nearby streetlight outside and our slowed breathing. Micah ran his fingers through my hair. "You're not like the others." I turned my head slightly. "Others?" He hesitated. "People who want something for a night. You're stuck in something." "Maybe," I whispered. "Does he know?" he asked. "No. And I don't know if I want him to." Silence again. Micah eventually stood, collected his hoodie, and looked at me one last time as he reached for the door. "I won't push. But I'll be around." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. He left, quiet as he came. The door clicked shut. I sat there, still half-dressed, staring at the empty space he left behind. My chest ached, not from regret, but from the weight of the choice I had made. It wasn't just a kiss. It wasn't just a fling. I had let someone in, physically, emotionally, dangerously deep. And now I couldn't take it back. Later that night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. My wedding ring shimmered under the overhead light. I turned it slowly on my finger. It felt heavier than ever. I climbed into bed alone. The sheets still smelled like Reed, but my skin remembered someone else. And as I closed my eyes, all I could feel was the imprint of Micah's mouth on mine. The morning Reed came home, I couldn't look him in the eye. He arrived earlier than expected, bags under his eyes, suit rumpled from travel. He dropped his briefcase by the door and kissed me on the forehead like nothing had changed. But everything had. "How was the conference?" I asked, voice hoarse from a night without sleep. "Long, boring. Same people saying the same things." He exhaled deeply, loosening his tie. "Glad to be back, though." He walked past me and into the kitchen, never noticing the second wine glass in the sink or the faint smell of a different cologne that hadn't fully faded. My chest tightened. Micah hadn't come back since that night. No text, no visit, just silence, and the memory of his mouth on my skin. I stared at Reed while he unpacked, moving through the house like a stranger. He talked about court dates and deadlines, but all I heard was the pounding in my ears. I'd betrayed him. Completely. And now I had to sit with it. I told myself maybe I could bury it. Pretend it never happened. People do it all the time, right? But guilt is a patient thing. It waits, festers, and then finds a way to surface. That evening, Reed came into the bedroom, holding something in his hand. "This yours?" he asked. It was a silver cufflink. Definitely not mine. And definitely not his. My heart dropped. "I found it under the couch," he added slowly. I opened my mouth, closed it again. No excuse formed. He stared at me, not angry. Just still. His eyes searched my face for something, truth, maybe. A confession. Or just a reason to walk away. "You want to explain?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, the weight of everything pressing down on my shoulders like wet cement. "It's not what you think," I said, knowing full well it was exactly what he thought. "Then what is it, Daniel?" My name in his mouth felt unfamiliar, sharp, hollow. I took a breath, but it came out shaky. I was lonely. I didn't plan it. It just happened. He looked away. A long silence stretched between us, the kind that fills a room and leaves no air. "Who was it?" he asked, voice quiet. "Someone who made me feel seen," I whispered. That hurt him. I saw it land like a slap. Reed turned toward the window, hands on his hips. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just stood there, breathing slowly, holding himself together with quiet, agonizing control. "I've been working," he said. "Trying to provide. Trying to build a life for us. I know. I didn't know I was disappearing in the process." I looked down. Neither did I. Until someone else saw me. His back stiffened. "I didn't want it to mean something," I said. But it did. He turned around then, eyes red but dry. "Do you love him?" "No," I said too quickly. "Then, I don't know." That, somehow, was worse. Reed didn't say another word. He just walked out of the room. I didn't follow. That night, I sat in the living room alone, the weight of my choices pressing against my chest like stone. The house was still. Silent. Empty, even with both of us inside it. And then came another knock. It was late, close to midnight. The air outside was heavy with the smell of rain again. I opened the door. Micah stood there. Same black hoodie. Same steady eyes. He looked at me, expression unreadable. "You told him." I nodded. His jaw tensed. "You okay?" "No," I said. "But I had to." He stepped inside, slow, cautious. "You want me to go?" "I don't know what I want." He didn't touch me. Didn't lean in. Just stood there, giving me space I hadn't earned. "I didn't mean to make your life harder," he said, voice low. "You didn't," I replied. "You just woke something up." We stood in silence, two men tangled in something complicated and irreversible. Micah ran a hand through his hair. "Do you regret it?" "Every minute that led up to it," I whispered. "But not the moment itself." He nodded slowly. "I get that." I didn't know what came next. I didn't know if I was about to destroy a marriage completely or cling to it by a thread. But what I did know was that pretending nothing had happened was no longer an option. Micah turned to leave again, but paused at the door. If you ever need, not answers but truth, I'm still here. I nodded. He left. Quietly. Just like before. I locked the door and leaned my forehead against it, breath catching in my throat. In the other room, Reed's side of the bed was empty. And mine had never felt more full of ghosts.